Hello and welcome to a special Wear Blue Run to Remember Veterans Day conversation about uncommon resilience. My name is Mike Oliger. I retired after 20 years of service from the Marine Corps in 2018. I bought my first Wear Blue Run to Remember shirt in 2012 at the Marine Corps Marathon Expo while I was still serving in the Corps. When Wear Blue featured me on their marketing for the 2013 Marine Corps Marathon, I thought to myself, now I'm a part of this and it might be time for me to get involved. Today, Textron Systems has generously sponsored this conversation, a place where we as veterans get to come together to discuss one of the common things we share and only we, those who have served, can understand. Across the country, there are over 19 million veterans who have selflessly served our nation and defended our rights and freedoms. For me, as a Marine, I always thought that Veterans Day was strategically placed the day after the Marine Corps birthday as a Marines for us to continue the celebration of not only the birth of our beloved Corps, but as a celebration of all the other servicemen and women that have served when our country needed us the most. Today, what I see at a large level is that the month of November celebrates both Veterans Day and the month of the military family, which just so happens to align to two of the three pillars of Wear Blue, for the fighting and for the families. Veterans Day is a celebration of those who have served and those who continue to serve. It's a time to get together with your fellow Marines, or sailors, or soldiers, or airmen to reconnect and remember the days gone by and where we've all come from. The community whose mission is to honor the service and sacrifice of the American military through active remembrance every day, I hope you'll take a moment to learn more at www.wearblueruntoremember.org. And one day, I hope to see you at a circle. Now it is my privilege to introduce you to Wear Blue Run to Remember's Chief of Operations, Dave Leach, a 32-year Army veteran with a career that spanned both enlisted and officer experiences here in the States, while assigned to Europe, and while deployed to both Iraq and Afghanistan.
Hey, thank you, Mike. It's great to be here with you all, our amazing partners and friends at Textron. We really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you a little bit today about what it means and to us to observe a Veterans Day. We're very excited to be able to participate with you in this conversation. You know, just a few short weeks ago, our mission ended in Afghanistan, and that left several of us questioning, hey, did my service matter? And for those who lost someone, either a family or friend, family member or friend, did my sacrifice matter? You know, this is not an unusual sentiment for folks who have served in previous conflicts, generations before us, when most notably Vietnam, when those veterans came back, they questioned, did my service matter? And I think it's absolutely critical that we recognize the fact that yes, indeed, their service mattered then and our service matters now. So I'd like to share with you a few thoughts on why I think it's important to recognize Veterans Day. It's important to recognize it for our servicemen and women, to recognize it for their family members, and to recognize it for the citizens of our country. You know, I served in the military for 32 years. You could argue that I wasn't smart enough to get out when I was eligible to do so. But in my service, I witnessed the very best of America's sons and daughters, the young men and women who step up and say, I'm willing to serve our country and choose a more difficult path for their life. I saw just incredible acts of bravery and selfless service. On a daily basis, we saw examples of just incredible goodness with our young men and women I was blessed to serve with. And I'll share one story with you in just a minute. But when I think about those men and women, it's not those incredible examples of resilience that stick out in my mind. It's the small ones that really make an impact. You know, the ones where you have a young man or woman who left their hometown, the first to do so, the first young man or woman to go to or graduate college in their family, the first man or woman to fly in an airplane, or step outside their comfort zone or their small community's comfort zone, to take a step forward and do a more challenging path. Is just an incredible example to me of the goodness of our young men and women and those who serve. Let me share a quick story about another example, a little bit more grand example of what it means to be resilient and to serve. In 2012, I was on a deployment to Afghanistan, and we received a message that somebody had been injured and was flying inbound on a medevac aircraft to our base. Lieutenant Nick Voigt was on a routine patrol with his unit when he stepped on an improvised explosive device. The blast sheared his legs off. At the site, they were able to get a tourniquet around him and get him successfully into a medevac helicopter. During the flight back to our base, they had to open his chest up to manually massage his heart to keep it beating. Once at the hospital, they put out a call on the loudspeaker. We need everybody that's available to come and donate blood. Literally a line stretching out the door to give blood for this young man. Our division surgeon came back to the unit area at the end of the evening, shaking his head, somewhat pessimistically, saying, "We don't think he'll make it. Just too much trauma to his body." The next morning, though, he was still alive. They thought, hey, if we can get his parents to Germany and if we can keep him stable long enough, maybe we can link them up in Germany so they can say goodbye to him there. So they did. He lived throughout the day. They got him stable. They sent him to Germany. His parents flew over. They were able to spend a few days in Germany together where miraculously he stayed alive. They said, maybe we can get him back to Walter Reed. They flew back to Walter Reed, where unfortunately he had a brain aneurysm, had to undergo emergency brain surgery. Imagine that. Lost his legs, open heart, manual massage, the loss of an incredible amount of blood, and now emergency brain surgery for a brain aneurysm. Incredible. A year later, he's being interviewed by a reporter who wants to ask him about what it means to live as a double amputee, to which he simply responds, "I love to be alive." An incredible story of resilience, incredible story of grit and determination, attitude and perseverance. Lieutenant Nick Voigt is emblematic of the young men and women that serve our country, and he's a perfect example of why we should observe Veterans Day and the service and sacrifice of our young men and women. It's not an easy life. It's not an easy life, and it's not for everyone. But yet, every day, recruiting stations are filled with folks that want to serve. Our military academies receive literally tens of thousands of more applications than they can accept for folks that want to serve. Again, grit, determination, resilience. We can and we should acknowledge Veterans Day. Did my service matter? Did your service matter? It absolutely did. It mattered then, it matters now, and it matters going forward. And we should take the time to recognize it. We're honored to do so today with our good friend Brian Nelson. Brian's a supporter of Wear Blue. Several years ago, he worked with our executive director, Lisa Hallett, as she was preparing for her TED Talk to talk about how she overcame the loss of her husband and how she moved forward in a positive way and is doing so now to help others. Brian's going to talk with two combat veterans, Eric and Max. Both Eric and Max are Army veterans themselves. They've served in a variety of organizations, notably the 82nd Airborne Division. And it'll be a great conversation. And we're glad to be part of it. So again, thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for taking time to observe Veterans Day, for being supporters of Wear Blue, Run to Remember. And I hope you all have a very meaningful Veterans Day.
Good morning for me. Good afternoon to others, I guess, on the East Coast. My name is Brian Nelson. We're here to talk about uncommon resilience with Textron and Wear Blue, Run to Remember. A happy Veterans Day to everybody that served and the families that served. I guess the older I get, the more important Veterans Day becomes year after year, which is a beautiful thing. So, Max, are you there?
Sure am. I'm Max Stanowski. I'm the co-chair of the Veterans Network here at Textron Systems. Eric and I have been doing this as co-chairs for a couple years now, and we love to do the quarterly speaker series. And today is a special event because it is Veterans Day. You know, I was in the Army for about 9 years. I've been in a varying degree of places. I've seen a varying degree of things. I started out as a 19-year-old in Germany, working as a mechanic in a mechanized infantry unit. And so I was, a bit of a ground pounder back when. Went to a lesser ground pounding unit in Arizona, re-enlisted to go airborne, and jumped out of perfectly good airplanes for a good 6.5 years. You land feet, rear end, head every single time. And, every time you land, you're like, oof. I'm sure some of the folks on the phone can relate to that. I transitioned out of the military in 2006, joined Textron Systems as a field service rep, working on the Shadow 200 UAS aircraft. I was able to make use of the skills I'd learned in the military and transition into a civilian career. And I've actually had a couple different roles while here at Textron. I transitioned from a field service rep into a program manager, and then got an engineering degree. So I've switched tracks to engineering. So I've kind of done an accoutrement of things, or a cornucopia, if you will. And, I've relied on that military experience throughout my whole duration here, because we do DoD-based products. So having that relationship with the DoD is something near and dear to my heart. So thanks for letting us come and share today with Brian. So I guess we'll get right into the dialogue. We want to kind of tag up with Brian and hear what he has to say. So Brian, we're definitely glad you're here today. We're super grateful and excited to hear what you have to share with us today. Our topic is uncommon resilience. So let's start there. So you are a master's resilience trainer. What does that mean? And how do you define resilience?
Hey, Max, good question. General Casey, I think this was 2008. He was the chief of staff at the time of the Army, reached out to Martin Seligman, who was head of psychology at UPenn, saying basically, like, we need some help. I'll just call it, like, let's say, scar tissue from the deployments. We were seeing a lot of aberrant behavior in our returning veterans, and what they wanted was something to essentially up armor our soldiers prior to we get in there, get into harm's way or into conflict or to life. And I think so the master resilience training it's kind of a train the trainer. It's the Army's, and I went to UPenn for about a month to get the training. It was great. It was the best training I'd ever had in my life. I would say, if I were to use common vernacular on what resilience is ability to take a body blow, right? Like, it's life is going to continually give us blow after blow after blow, and resilience is essentially rubbing some dirt in it and getting back up to the plate, and carrying on. And so everything that they do in the master resilience training, it's a mashup really of like positive psychology, sports psychology, and what I think you'd call cognitive behavioral theory. So it's all cognitive. And at the time I'm a retired intelligence officer, and all of our soldiers, we all speak foreign languages. And so languages was like my geek space. And at the time that this rolled out in 2010 2010 when I went, I had consumed probably 20 or 30 books on how we learn, from Dan Coyle's How to Build Talent to Brain Rules by John Medina, to all of these things. And so the idea that the Army was going to come out with some cognitive exercises, I was highly attuned to. Here's what I think they might have missed is we're embodied, right? Like, if you read John Rady's Spark, I highly encourage everybody to read that. It's if we want to get the pharmacy that's inside our head, the skeleton key to all of that is through exercise. And while all of these cognitive approaches, cognitive behavior theory, all of these things are helpful, if we don't give ourselves, if we don't recognize the fact that we're embodied and that the body requires certain things to make it operate correctly and actually feel correctly. And even in Brain Rules, John Medina, it's all about learning and brain rules. The first thing he says is, if you want to get smarter, get fitter, And that's like the, physiological growth of capillaries and things throughout the brain. And what John Rady's saying is this is also the way to self-medicate, essentially. And you combine that, the physicality, with the cognitive tools. And then I think we start talking about resilience that is functional. Does that answer it? That's
Yeah,
a
that's
long
great.
answer. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
a good explanation. And it kind of, the more you talk about it, the more it motivates me to ask you more questions. So how do we build resilience, and why does this matter?
Well, I think one, let me say this: we're all resilient. We're all still here, and so we all have the tools to stay here. But here's a good example. I was at a conference last week. Started to feel crappy Saturday morning. I felt so crappy that I actually gave myself a COVID test on Monday, and I was just dragging all week. Didn't feel good, haven't exercised. And for me, now this is me speaking for Brian, is if I can't move the body, my mental health begins to erode. It is, and in fact, this week I've been nervous. Like, what am I going to say? Are they going, am I going to ruin it? Am I going to embarrass Wear Blue? All these things. And it's crazy talk, right? I mean, we have 70,000 thoughts that race through our head every day. And I have a habit of over-identifying with my thoughts. Like, those are me, which isn't, so there's mindfulness training to help us recognize that the thoughts just come and go. But anyways, my point is that life is a series. There is no there, right? There is no place where everything's going to be good. We are going to go up and down. Good things happen. We experience horrible things and loss, right? Which is probably the worst condition that we all face. And so we need to learn tools to help us not stay down when we get down, if that answers the question.
Yeah, I like that, just digging deep. So how do we bring that into the workplace? How can we replicate that here?
I think that's an interesting question. When I was a young trooper, young soldier, I always considered PT as part of my workday in a negative way, right? Like I would say to anybody who would listen, I work a 60-hour work week in the Army because I got to be at PT at 06:30, and then what I realized, actually, when I got out of the Army and I had a corporate gig and I had to commute about, what could be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, you never know. And I had to be there at 8, which meant that if I wanted a PT in the morning, I had to be up at like 4:30 or 5, which I didn't do. And so I got kind of out of shape and spent more time, my commute became my PT time. So I think if I were to, so how do we do this for a company? One, I think it would be wise for corporations to recognize that we need to move, and we need to do that together. I'm a big fan of what Wear Blue's Saturday runs are about, getting together. And I'm also, if you think about, Max, you might even think about this too. It's the rucksack flop after the long ruck march, when we're digging in MREs and sharing our food and busting each other's chops about some guy wearing pantyhose so he doesn't get blisters on his feet, and like, who's got the cheese whiz and can we switch it for peanut butter? It's that fellowship after doing something hard that is so important. And so how do we do that? How do we mobilize doing things hard together and then celebrating that? I think, like you, Max, you had said you'd had a very busy week. Those are doing things that are hard, but I sometimes think that it might be wise for corporate cultures to recognize, to do things together that are physical, actually. There's a physicality to it that that's good for us. And I've thought about this for so long. There's something about doing hard exercise together with people that I think, okay, here's how I'll say it. is I think we see the world, we're in like those googly eyes, right? These slinky googly eyes, clown eyes, and we have earmuffs. Like that's how we go through the world. We don't see the world correctly most of the time. We bring our own biases, our own life experiences to it that filter how we see the world. But when we go out and we do hard exercise with others, there's a moment, right? There's this window in time where I think what it is our ego, it's pulverized and more open, and we can actually see clearly and we can hear clearly, and we witness another human being doing the same damn thing we're doing. I think what we see is, I would say we'd see the divine spark in another human being, or their authentic self, or whatever language that is that resonates with one another. But there's something to that. It's why sports work. It's like the military works. We suffer together. We share values, suffer together, and we break bread together. So, long answer. I would have quarterly things, runs, like a battalion run or division run or things, and then I would take pictures of it, and then we would have and we'd break bread, and then we would share those continually in our corporate culture to remind ourselves of who we really are. Kind of a big ask, but I don't think really that big of an ask.
There's so much team building and camaraderie that comes along with that. It's like you almost can't wait to the next time we suffer together so we can go and do it all again and break that bread, like you said.
Yeah. So here's just one anecdotal piece of evidence. So one of my besties, Jeff, I've known him since he was a cadet, and he was in my battalion when I was the battalion commander, and I'd started officer PT, because we in the reserve component in the Guard, you really don't have much time to do PT, but I wanted to get to know my officers, and I was going to lead through my officers. So I thought the best way to get to know them for me is hard exercise. And I gotta forgive, Kelly and I have an animal rescue, and so we have a lot of pets. And anyways, I've got one yelling at me, but so I started to do officer PT because I wanted to get to know the men and women, the officers in my unit. And so we'd run these stairs at this high school, and then we'd play like ultimate or soccer, and then go break bread. We'd eat breakfast every day. And then every other month we'd bring one of the companies down, and we'd all run the stairs, do something hard, and then we'd all play sports, and then we'd play O versus E soccer. But there is, so I asked Jeff one day, because some of the officers were giving me a little bit of a hard time about it. And I said, hey dude, what do you think about officer PT? Now this guy, by every measure, is a successful human being. He's the head of HR at a state agency. He's got 2 beautiful kids, a lovely wife. He's financially, spiritually, everything you would think of as success. And he said to me, Brian, officer PT is the most important. It's the best part of my month. And like, that's powerful. Coming together, doing something hard and celebrating it became this guy's most important day of the month. A guy that was successful in every other, by any measure. So it's not hard, and the rewards are profound.
That's awesome. And it's so great that you have this experience to build on. So, you've got over your own resilience throughout the years, through a life of service, maybe delve into that a little more and open up about your story.
Okay, I joke, some people might not be old enough to remember this, but I jokingly, tongue-in-cheek-ish, say that I was Jeff Spicoli before I joined the Army. I grew up in Central California and never, ever considered the military. But after a pathetic year at a junior college, I realized I needed to get the hell out of town. So I joined the Army without telling any of my friends, because I knew they would talk me out of it. And I feel like what I jokingly say is that I stumbled into this career that fit me like a glove. And I was enlisted for 8.5 years. I'd gone home my first Christmas and saw that all of my buddies, like nothing had changed. All my buddies, everybody was still getting high and drinking too much. And I came back and got dead serious. I started going to school at night. And then I changed jobs. I went to Monterey to study Russian. And I still never planned on staying. The Army was always just a means to an end. We go to Europe, come back, and by that point I'd finished my undergrad and most of grad school, and was really excited to leave and enter the corporate world, because I thought at the time that money was the most important thing to me. We weren't wealthy growing up, and all the rich kids seemed to have everything that I guess my values were money, and but I'd gone through officer candidate school on the weekends in the Guard while I was still active duty. So I get out in April, and then I'm commissioned in July, and I get this corporate job the next January. After a few years of learning the corporate world, and becoming a company grade officer in the Guard, I actually found I was happier in uniform. And then 9/11 happened, and I knew we were going to rumble. So I was able to, fortunately, find a full-time position back in the Guard. And so I spent the next 15 years from '02 to 2015 as an AGR full-time soldier in the Guard. And it was just the richest experience. And let me share one thing about, and this I think is going to tie all the way back to why Wear Blue is so profound. I was passed over for promotion. I was a major, and I was expecting to get promoted to lieutenant colonel, and I was passed over, and I was really upset, right? But it came out as anger, and so I was F this, F that, and I was angry. I was looking at all the 05s and 06s that I just didn't think were as talented as I was, and then it hit me that, man, I've given my entire adult life to this organization, and I've really loved it. I don't want to leave angry. So I started writing this gratitude list, which is another resilience skill. But I started writing it angrily. Like, I got my effing degree. I got this effing house. I met my wife. I was still angry. And then I remember pausing at one point, and I thought about the number of deep, meaningful relationships that I had in the Army. And that was like the mic drop. My eyes welled with tears, and I dropped the pencil. And I was like, I'm fine, man. I'm Bill Gates wealthy when it comes to, I should say Elon Musk these days, right? When it comes to deep, meaningful relationships, and I'm okay. And so I think what I learned more than anything in the military, it's not what I do, is with whom I do it that matters so much. And that power of connection, Brene Brown will say that connection is an irreducible human need. And I cannot pound out how profoundly important and right on the money Brene Brown is with that connection.
Well, it seems like you kind of stumbled into a career that fit you because of your 27 years of military service, and that service was applicable to that career. How did you know that was the right fit for you?
I didn't, right? I didn't. I always said I was ETSing for 8.5 years. Like, I was such a cynical NCO. And it was when I separated, and I was just doing it on the weekends, and I realized that I wasn't happy chasing money for money's sake. The corporate culture that I was in wasn't really healthy. And I would go home. I remember it was a trucking company, a propane company. And so I had to get a different license, a CDL. And I'm waiting in the DMV, or we call it DOL up here, to get my license. And I look around, and it looks like, it's the accurate reflection of our country. And it was kind of like those old Walmart photos, people wearing, let's just say it wasn't the healthiest looking crowd. And then I thought back to who I had just served with that weekend, the men and women in my company. And I was like, actually, the military is the best reflection of our country. And I think it began to hit me around there. So I was like 29, 30 years old. And it hit me like, oh my God, I'm a soldier. I something that I had been pushing against all of my life while I was in, thinking that I hadn't achieved as much as I wanted to. I mean, all of my friends from high school were lawyers, doctors. I'm the dummy of the smart kids, right? That's my kind of lot in life. And, or I guess I should say maybe the jock of the smart kids. And I didn't understand at the time how much meaning I needed in my professional endeavors. And so what we do in the military is so filled with meaning that, and I would say that probably about Textron is too, is like you're supporting the defense of this country, which I believe is divinely inspired and the greatest experiment ever in the history of mankind. Like that's powerful. And so it took me a while to accept that. I had to, maybe this goes back to being embodied. I had to live things out, right? I had to live it out. I had to live out in the corporate world and like, oh, this doesn't feel right. And I felt much better back in the Army, where I was acting out my values, which were below the surface, right? I hadn't even like scoured my brain and soul enough to bring those, what really matters to me, to the fore. And once I began to understand that, I cannot tell you, like I wept when I was hired to go back in the Guard full time, because it was like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Based on that, it seems like the right job found the right person, and it became a match made in heaven. Define some of the moments that you're most proud of.
Well, okay, so obviously deploying is both terrifying and exhilarating, and actually that was in my gratitude list, was opportunity to go to combat. Kind of like, if you're an athlete, you want to get in the game, right? You don't want to just practice. Allen Iverson's just practice, man. But more than that, I think that this is, I'm totally projecting here, but what gives me more joy than anything was to witness the development of young men and women in our organization. Like I used to say, I was a soldier whisperer, and I think leaders, here's Nelson's theory of leadership. Our primary responsibility is to see the potential in our people, whisper that in their ears, make them know you believe in them, like, and then knock down barriers so that they can grow into what you see. And we did it every single day in the Army. And I mean, to this day, I still get Facebook and texts and calls from the soldiers I served with for years, and they're checking in and they're sharing the good things that are happening in their lives. And I just can't find anything else that's more inspiring than to witness the development of men and women, which time you make corporal forward, I think that's our primary job in the Army.
It's pretty awesome how you were transitioning from an enlisted person into an officer. That's not an easy feat, because it's two separate worlds that, yes, when you put them together, everything works very well. The learning process is never ending. Tell us about some of the things that you picked up along the way in that transition.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. And you'll hear it from the soldiers, right? They'll say things like, "Oh, prior service are always the best officers," and that's hogwash. I think I do think what they don't. I think what doesn't change is, I always used to say, Specialist Nelson is sitting on my shoulder all the time, telling me this is screwed up, this is stupid, this is screwed up, and so I had that counsel, right, of my younger time in the military. But I think what makes prior service officers, we connect quicker with our soldiers because our language doesn't change. Like I would always call my soldiers publicly by their first name and their rank and name at different times. And that was primarily, and this was, again, me reflecting back on my actions years later, why I would do this. But really what I was telling them was, you matter. I know you. I know everything about you. In fact, here are my, I guess, 4 tenets. You matter, you belong, we need you at your best. Now let's get to work. And they're ordinal, right? We have to let people know that they matter, that they belong here, that you're not done yet though, bro. You gotta like get stronger, get faster, get smarter. And then now we've got a big mission. Let's go do that. So I would say combat was one, but more than that would be taking a young soldier who's being snarky as I'm putting something out and saying, being a smart aleck. And this one kid, Jeremy, at one point, I was saying something. He was sharpshooting me appropriately, right? Like it was funny, and everyone was laughing, and I was kind of embarrassed. Afterwards, I asked, "Hey, Jeremy, I got to talk with you," and he was pretty nervous, probably thinking that I was going to chew his butt. I was like, "Dude, have you thought of OCS?" And it dumbfounded him. He thought he was going to get in trouble, and what I saw in him was a spark of leadership. So I would say more than anything that I'm proud of, grateful for, right? That's kind of is the relationships that I've made. And sometimes too, I think this might be another resilience kind of head trick, is when I look around at the men and women that consider me a friend, if I'm feeling down and I haven't exercised, like I was feeling this week, when you look around and say, oh my God, these people hold me in high regard, like they consider me a friend, that's great. And so I think it's just, yeah, it's just that. I guess it's having an influence, a positive influence on the people that I served with, that I'm most proud of.
It's amazing that kind of, when you know someone and you know the things about their lives, it's like, it's so much easier to relate to them and see the things that maybe they don't see, making that recommendation like, hey, if you thought about taking it to the next level.
Yeah.
So,
I had this other kid. It was so funny. Bernard, I can't think of his last name, but he was a former Marine. I'd just taken command. And so I'd bring every soldier in to get to know him. And like the first question, like, dude, what are you here for? Like, why? Because my thought was, we all joined for our own super reason. I shared with you that mine was just cowardly escape out of town. So there's nothing noble about me joining. Excuse me. But I'd want to know what their like goals are. So you get your individual values and goals, and then the organizational. And I think what leaders are supposed to do is like, we got to try and like yank those both together so they're within the larger axis of advance, so to speak. But I'm talking with this kid, Bernard, bright young man. He was a former Marine. And it's funny, as I'm talking to him as I'm eating some fast food, and he's like, hey, sir, that's not warrior food. He just busted my balls right there, right? Just called it, hit me with a truth bomb. But I asked him, hey, what are you considering doing? Have you taken, are you getting your education taken care of? He says, well, sir, I've got this disability. It's ADHD. And I was like, bro, let's talk about your, argue for your limitations, and they're yours. ADHD, in my opinion, is a superpower. How many other people can keep like 12 different thoughts in their head? So, man, I could go on and on about my stories about my soldiers. They're just I just love them, right? And we would say in Army leadership that the leader is supposed to provide purpose, motivation, direction. That's kind of old school Army leadership. And what I found was that I found my purpose, motivation, and direction from them. They fed me much more than I could feed them. So, yeah, and I just feel so blessed to have, like I said, stumbled. But me taking school and going to OCS and things like that, that is me executing the opportunities that were in front of me, and that the organization and other leaders had pointed out to me. Also, I think looking at poor leaders, there's also like, dude, I could do better than that. I could do better than that guy. So there's a component of that as well.
It's funny, the camaraderie again, the team building, purpose, motivation, direction. These are concepts I think we could find in the workplace. Even, some people being a veteran, some people not being a veteran. I think these are all common themes that will help us all achieve the grander scheme goals in the long run. And it's so interesting to try to apply a concept, of suffering together to build a stronger team and then breaking bread after the fact. I mean, how many times have you seen your guys and gals go out for a meal after a hard ruck or a gosh?
Yeah, it's, I mean, so I've thought a lot about this. Kelly and I put an event together that where Blue participates, where we race up and down these stairs. It's really hard. It started with Officer PT, which I shared earlier, but so I thought, like, why does this work? And like, why does the movies Rocky, Rudy, Creed, like, why do they still resonate? Rocky lost, but I don't think anybody knows that as you're sobbing and screaming, and so I think there's a two-part component to this that's important. One is, like I said, how we show up in the world with our googly eyes and earmuffs on, blind, right? Really blind to the beauty of everybody else. And so when we go and we do hard things ourselves, like, you cannot be cool and indifferent when you have pushed all the chips in and you have given everything that you got. You got a spit bubble and you're sweating and a snot bubble, and like nothing of that looks good, except it looks real and it's authentic. And so there's a part of it where you are opening yourself to others. And then when we see that in other people, those to our left and right doing something really hard and not quitting, it's the most beautiful thing you'll ever see. And your heart soars and you fist bump and clap and hug and it's so meaningful. And we don't know why. And I think it's like we have to get through this place where we tear away our ego, we tear away all the crap that we in our biases and all that junk. And we're like, just a couple of people, a few people trying to do something good. And I'll even say, it was it Matthew, 18:20, when 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am amidst them. I don't think you have to be gathered in prayer. Like, you have to be gathered doing something important, the highest, best use, the good. And I think it's divine. I guess that's what I believe. So, because it works, man, it works every single time it's tried, every single time. And then we can lower the long knives and we can come together, and that's where diversity and inclusion, equity, all that comes to bears, because then we can actually see each other like, oh, now we can solve problems. Now we can do big things. But before then, I think we're blinded.
I love all these ideas on how to break down barriers to become the we, because when I'm a me, I know I can get in my head for sure.
Yeah.
I definitely like to know. So you run, of course.
Yeah.
Give me an example of one of the songs on your playlist that motivates you to get out there and stomp some curb.
Okay, so I'll name a few. One, I'm an 80s guy, right? So hair bands and punk rock, but It's a Beautiful Day by U2 was on my playlist, and one of my favorite songs, and it really has a core resilience meaning, is Wounded by Third Eye Blind. If you haven't, I would encourage everybody, Google the words and listen to the song and read the words, because what they're saying is, this gal had she was accosted in the song, and what they're and she's kind of gone away, and they're singing, show up wounded, show up, like, we need you back here. It's such a beautiful message that like, we've all got battle scars. That's okay. So yeah, I would say Wounded and It's a Beautiful Day.
That's fantastic. And I really appreciate you coming and sharing with us all the things that about the topic. I think we have a lot we can bring into our own organization in regards. And I'd like to see and check in with Wear Blue if they have anything else to add here before we maybe open it up to the quorum for some additional questions to Brian. Looks like Eric's got his hand raised. Eric, you want to pose a question?
Hey, thanks. Thanks for coming in, talking with us. I really enjoy it. I can connect with a lot of the things you had to say, especially I had really forgotten how important those times are when you're sitting back on your ruck and you're breaking open the plastic of an MRE and exchanging all those things. Those are the little things that you take for granted. But that brought back so many memories. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, you
So
bet.
my question right now is it kind of got me thinking about that situation where you're sitting around talking. I guess my challenge as a leader right now is growing, and specifically in this role with Max as co-chairs of this wonderful ERG we're building here. The challenge for me personally is growing involvement in activities that benefit our veterans that we have. And we put a lot of energy into putting these things on, and I feel that people who it would benefit fail to show up. Time after time, I take, like you said, the blow of that not being, it being a sign that I'm not a successful leader here because of the lack of activity. Um, how do you suggest, what are some ways that I can stay resilient when it comes to continuing on these things, and not just to give up and walk away because it doesn't feel like people care as much as a few of us do? How do I keep showing up?
I think, you ever read Steve Pressfield? If not, please do. He wrote Gates of Fire, Legend of Bagger Vance. He's got a blog. But he quotes, and this is I think it's Krishna. And it's really hard to keep in mind, but I think it's so spot on. Is and I'm gonna misquote it, but you'll get the gist. But it's, we have a right to our labor, but we don't have a right to the fruits of our labor. So it's this real humble approach to what we're doing, is that we have to do what we're supposed to do, and the outcome, right, is not up to us. I think something that I think the values that we have in the military, we could probably call those traditional American values. And I think that those should be stated out loud, and they should be embraced and talked about. And in many ways, for those that didn't serve, we're not that different, dude, right? Look, we're not. I mean, I used to say the difference between the athlete and the soldier is the uniform, right? Like they're the same values, and it's the values that we embrace in the Army, and then it becomes really real when life gets really rough. But I think if we could somehow, because I think the other thing is that in some ways the present day veteran is, we've been told, thank you for your service, and it's a completely different dynamic than it was when our parents maybe, or a generation prior to us served. It's almost overwhelming, and I think that most of us kind of we're modest maybe about our military service, but I think if there was a way to, I'm thinking out loud, Eric, it is a way to demonstrate that the values that we did, the things that we did in the military, are the things that any organization or any person, those are the values that are appropriate and good and right and build success and resilience and all those things. And then I guess at the other point, like we used to do in the Army, right? We've all experienced this, the mandatory fun, right?
You took the words out of my mouth. Yeah, that exact term, right?
And here's the thing I learned, because you can sit over with the guy smoking cigarettes like, this sucks, but this is stupid, friggin' beat, those asshats are playing, volleyball or tug of war. You know what makes mandatory fun is to participate, like get into the tug of war, to get into the volleyball game, to show up, right? And not be too cool and indifferent, because that is calloused. We need to show up. And so what I might do is, Eric, would be, one, find a couple of activators, find that specialist, Jeremy, who is the subordinate leader. He or she has that, they've got that influence in your organization, and we need to get them, right? Co-opt them in a way, and like, hey, bro, I need your help here. Hey, gal, I need your help to make this matter, and you're a leader here. And I think in some ways, when we talk to people, they know that, and then you say it out loud to them, they can't hide from the fact that they're a leader and they have influence, and that there's like at that point, I think, like a moral obligation to show up. It's back to wounded, right? Show up wounded.
That's a great idea. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions out there from the quorum? Excuse me. Mary, do you have any questions? Mary Enger?
Yeah, Max, Brian, Eric, thank you so much for just an awesome discussion. Really learned a lot, and I appreciate you being so genuine and open with us. Honestly, like the question I was gonna ask, since you're so into running, like how can someone who's not really into running as a great like outlet, just how do you inspire people to join and get into that?
Well, a great question. One, I think, in the Army, we use the term crawl, walk, run. When we're learning something new, that's recognizing that you're not born. The skills are built, right? And fitness is built. So one, I know on December the 5th, Wear Blue's doing the Gold Star Solidarity Run, and in that week you can run 26 miles, and it's free, and you're a part of something. It's run or walk. I'd read somewhere, I don't know how factuous this is, but I read it and it stuck, was that people that had lost weight and kept it off for like more than 5 years, one of the correlative activities was that they ran or walked 20 miles a week. So I would say take baby steps, right? So walk, like a couch to 5K, those types of things. And here's one of the things I believe is kind of like bright line rules, right? Like no matter what, right? So if you make a bright line rule that I'm going to walk something a particular day, like that's the first thing you do. Or you don't go to bed until that's done. It has to be a very bright line rule, because then we begin to build. We need to build the evidence in our head that we are more than who we are. So we have to act it out. We have to practice. And so I would say start very small, but know that moving is important, and I'm going to do this. And usually when we do this for others, it's easier, right? I think it's why CrossFit works, and other of these things. Like, you're not going to stop if someone else is doing something with it. So one, grab a buddy, make a buddy, and hold yourselves accountable, and say, we're gonna try and walk or run, and we're gonna run, walk. We're gonna do whatever, because we're not competing against anybody. We're competing against our best selves. We're trying to become our best selves, and we're not there yet, right? We're not done yet. There's no there ever, right? So start small, get some friends, and hold yourself a battle buddy. Yeah, exactly. And then what we find is, in sometimes the most miserable of circumstances. I was out, this is probably 10 years ago, I was out running with my dogs, and it was this time of the year. So up here, it's just dark, right? It's dark all the time. And I was out running with my dogs around in this beautiful park where I live, and it was dark as hell. And I was coming around this lake, and it's really all these evergreens. We live in God's country up here, but the sky was going from super black to all these different colors of charcoal. And I was literally like stopped in my tracks at this unbelievable, beautiful tapestry that I was seeing. And it was like, it felt like God put it there just for me at that moment. And it was like, it wouldn't have been there if I hadn't been up at 5:30 and out running with my dogs in the rain. So long answer, Mary, but I hope that there might be a nugget or two in there.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Mary, there's some folks on the VetNet who also like to run. We have, I think, the Wear Blue to Remember December 7th, the Pearl Harbor commemorative run coming up soon. So maybe, a lot of times what I've seen as far as running, because I've gone through several periods of, running a whole lot and running well, and then not doing it at all, and then not running well at all. But, picking something to aim for also helps. So a lot of us are going to be doing that December 7th run in the event that you're interested in getting going there as a battle buddy.
Yes, sounds like a good group's getting together. I'll have to join you all.
I gotta say, just real quick, so how proud I am of Textron. One, to support Wear Blue. I can't thank you enough. I think what Wear Blue does, what Lisa and everyone involved in Wear Blue has taught us, is the healthiest way to face life is to get together, grab a hold of each other's hands, name out loud our values, the people that matter, the people that, and then we go together and do something hard. It's like so elementary, it's so basic, but it's so profound. And I just, it warms my heart. It really gives me faith in the year, so we've been through some rough times nationally, and to see companies that are embracing these values, I can't tell you how much it inspires me. And I'm so grateful and thankful to Textron for supporting something that's so dear to me.
We appreciate you coming and sharing today with us. It's been absolutely heartwarming and enlightening. I want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. This is wonderful to be able to sit as a collective on Veterans Day, especially. I want to thank all who have helped put this together. And I want to leave some parting words for Wear Blue to share, if indeed they're so inclined.
Words matter, and we certainly appreciate this. And then sweating together to honor our veterans is absolutely fantastic too. So thank you, Textron.
Awesome. Well, this has been a wonderful gathering. Again, thank you, everyone. Brian, Wear Blue, everybody who participated today. You've all been wonderful. We really appreciate you. We hope to continue to do more speaker series in the future or continue to partner with Wear Blue's organization. December 7th is coming up quick. So we'll want to Wear Blue to remember there too.
Thank you very much, everyone from Wear Blue.
Yeah, thanks, Max. Yeah, I've always thought, don't thank a vet, go sweat with a vet. Right? Like, our actions matter. They're the only thing that matter. And that really, I think, is the solve to assuage our the discomfort, right? The pain, the things that can feel so debilitating. It's amazing how they become manageable when we get the right juices flowing through us. And again, the skeleton key to that is move. Go out and run. Go run with people that care, with the people you care about with. It's primal. I mean, we're genetically predisposed to this. So thank you.
I guess this concludes our speaker series event today. Thanks, everyone. It's been a wonderful Veterans Day event.